Welcome to the Young Crones Cafe, where you can get a magic brew full of all sorts of information, both witchy and practical.
Grab a cup of coffee and join us. I'm Elizabeth, a wordsmith.
And I'm Dave, a modern-day sage.
We are going to talk about various witchcraft and life topics from a slightly more mature perspective, at least most of the time.
Thanks for joining us.
Here's a little something extra from the Young Crones Cafe to get you through until our next regularly scheduled podcast. We have been dealing with a lot. We are rebuilding our house, actually renovating from the inside out, as it were, as a result of a house fire. So we're getting a lot of extra stuff done. And I keep wanting to push the project faster and faster because the deadline of when my kids come home from college, where we'd be bursting at the seams at the Airbnb, is looming ever closer. And it's been making me a little nuts. And I was reminded by a friend in recovery, think of the Serenity Prayer, which loosely translates into the God of your understanding. You ask that, whatever that is, to accept things you can't change, have the courage to change the things you can. And here's the real hit: have the wisdom to know the damn difference. And that's kind of where I am right now, is taking the time to remember the difference. There's things I can't do anything about, so I'm going to focus on the little nuts and bolts things of everyday life that I can manage successfully and go on from there. It's definitely reducing my stress levels. The other day when we were recording, Dave the Sage and I got into a discussion a little bit about that. As witches, Sue and I always like to try to keep ourselves on that leading flow of creation, which kind of aligns ourselves with the universe. You can think of that flow almost athletes talk about being in that zone where time seems to almost slow down and you see things much more clearly, and every shot you make on a basketball counts, and you see the openings on a football field or whatever, but you're in that flow. And I like to think of a similar experience for us with the flow of creation. The ideas just seem to pop out of nowhere. They come to fruition easily, or with less stress involved anyway. But you constantly seem to have that string of little ideas that you can string together into something much larger and grander than you ever envisioned. Sitting on the leading edge of the flow of creation also allows you to pivot and change gears a lot more quickly. So I'm going to focus on going with my sense of flow. One thing that I'm doing is taking time every once in a while to take those 3 deep breaths, reminding me that I have my sacred 3 of body, mind, and spirit, and trying to keep them in as much harmony as possible allows me to stay in that flow more easily. What affects one affects the other too. So I am also focusing on mundane activities like trying to get a little more sleep. I actually took a nap today, which I don't usually do, for a half an hour or so. And I woke up and I found my thinking was clearer, and I was able to get up and do the 87 small errands that I needed to get through in order to successfully manage the rest of my mundane life today. And while 87 is probably an exaggeration, I did manage to get the 4 major things accomplished that I knew I absolutely had to get through today. And sometime we'll talk about my crazy way of doing a to-do list, but that's a subject for something else entirely. However, as you can tell by my ramblings, I am working really hard at going with that flow. That reminder that I am not in charge of the universe, that I am not the ultimate authority over anybody else, anything else, or anywhere else. Those people, places, and things that I seem to think I have to manage in order to successfully keep my own life on track. I need to remember that that's bullshit. The only thing I can change is my reactions to these people, places, and things. And I can either get all caught up in the insanity of everybody else, and we all have some, I know I do, or just focus on my own little corner of the world. Today I went outside and we are experiencing the first few warm days that remind us that spring might actually show up. It was hot today for here. It was in the 70s, the sun was shining, the birds were singing. And I'm reminded that we are entering a new season where I'm going to focus on the foundations of my own practice. It's a way of rooting myself every year at this time of year in the element of earth. It's a reminder for me to go back and look at where I started and see what I don't do anymore. And do I want to try some of that stuff again? Or do I know why I stopped doing the things I don't do? And maybe find few new things to try here and there as well, which is always fun. So, in the meantime, why don't you see today where you can figure out where you can find a way to flow more smoothly in your life? Think of it as the flow of water. It gets to where it's going. It knows how to move around the rocks, through the obstructions created by beavers or man or anything else to get to where it needs to be. It doesn't have to move quickly. It can just keep going. And the idea is today I'm just going to stay in the flow and try to avoid as many rocks as possible. So until next time, I wish you mirth and reverence in all things, and check out our new episode next week. If you're listening and you have some ideas about flow or questions or whatever, feel free to email either of us at elizabeth@twoyoungcrones.com, and that is a number 2, or dave@twoyoungcrones.com, or check out our Patreon page for the Young Crones Cafe. Sign up and join us in our Discord, and we'll be happy to answer any questions or have a conversation with you, at least electronically, any time of the day or night. So until then, have a wonderful day and go with the flow.
Well, it looks like the coffee cups are empty for this week. We hope you join us again next Tuesday, but you can find us at our website, twoyoungcrones.com. That's the number 2, Young Crones.
We'd love to have you join our growing online Discord community. Check out our new Patreon presence. Just look for Young Crones Cafe. Through Patreon, you'll be able to make it to our Discord. We are also Young Crones Cafe on Twitter and Facebook.
Until then, remember, we are witches who work with energies to effect change.
We are believers in both immanent and transcendent divine.
We are celebrants of the passage of the solar and lunar cycles.
We are hedge walkers who pass back and forth between the worlds of the magical and the mundane.
We are seekers of knowledge.
And we are walkers of a spiritual tradition we call the Path.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.